What if I told you there's a book that the world's greatest articulators want to keep a secret? And today, instead of me telling you about this, we have the author of the book himself who will break down these key concepts. This book is called First Minute by Chris Fenning. Chris is the author of two award-winning business books, The First Minute, which we're about to get into, and Effective Emails. And he's also a trainer in clear and concise communication. So using the ideas he's developed over 15 years, let's dive into the interview for the first minute.
I want to understand from you the very first chapter, and we're not going to go chapter by chapter, but the very first chapter is one technique which immediately resonated with me. It's something that I apply very often in my emails, if I have to communicate a difficult conversation to somebody, even in my WhatsApp messages. And that technique is called framing. I would love to hear a little bit from you for those who might not have read the books or even beyond that. What is framing and how can someone apply it in their workspace?
So let's take a look at that first method, framing. Framing is something that sets up the conversation you're about to have. So if we were working together, Pradeep, and I wanted to talk to you about something that we were working on, if I come up to you, you could be thinking about anything at all in the whole world. You could be thinking about the work. You could be thinking about a report next week, lunch, something that you watched on TV or the movies. You could be thinking about anything, and I guarantee it's not going to be the topic that I want to talk about. You also have no idea why I'm talking to you or what the point is that I want to make. And this is where framing comes in. Framing provides, in the first 10 to 15 seconds of the conversation, it provides the information that all of us want to have when somebody comes to talk to us. And the easiest way to understand it is there are three questions that we all have. When someone talks to us, we think, what are you talking about? Why are you talking to me? And what's your point? Now, we may not say those, we're often far more polite than that, but whether we realize it or not, those are the questions that we have. And until we know the answers, we struggle to focus, we struggle to understand. And so framing as a method is a three-part method that gives the audience exactly what they need to answer those three questions. It gives them context. What are you talking about? What is the topic? Oh, Pradeep, I want to talk to you about this particular project or that client or this issue. It gives intent. Why am I talking to you? I need your help. I'm looking for information. Heads up, something's about to happen. And it delivers a key message, which is the equivalent of a headline in an article or on the news. So framing provides context, intent, and key message. They're the three parts. And it answers those three questions that when you answer them, the audience pays attention, they understand what you want, and you can have a great conversation.
Yeah, one of the things that I came across when I was reading the framing chapter is that, man, this is so simple. Why haven't we thought about this before? Because it's just logical that, yeah, people are thinking about something else. You have to draw context. At least tell them why you're speaking to them and then say the message. Most people skip to the third part of it itself. So,
oh, yes, and go into detail. They don't just skip to the key message. They go into, oh, let me give you lots of backstory and all the time, we as an audience are thinking, what, hang on, what is this about? And we're trying to unpick it, or we're trying to work out what the conversation is about as it's happening, which means we're not concentrating on the detail. We're concentrating on what on earth are you talking about?
Hey, if you're enjoying the interview so far, hit subscribe because we release regular communications content. And if you want to take your communications to the next level, you can click the link in the description to check out our courses and see if we can work together. Back to the interview.
and for those of you questioning that, hey, aren't we communicating too little by just giving this context, intent, and key message? For you, there is more to this framework as well, which we'll get into right now. There's a very interesting technique given in the book called as GPS. Chris, would you tell us what GPS is all about and how it adds to the framing aspect of what we just spoke about?
Yes. Just before I go into GPS, to answer the question of, well, surely this is too brief and too abrupt, the framing sets up the conversation. It answers those three critical questions so you can then talk about the detail and go into all the extra things, answer the questions, expand it, and so on. So framing is the first step. Then, if you have a large topic, it's important to summarize it. And this is where GPS comes in: goal, problem, solution. And the reason we need to summarize is everything we talk about at work, in fact, everything we talk about in life, is a summary. And I stand by that. I absolutely stand by that. Here's an example. Pradeep, tell me, what did you do this morning before breakfast?
I did yoga.
Okay, that was a summary. If you weren't giving me a summary, you would have said, I woke up, I opened my eyelids, I took a breath, I moved my head up off the pillow, I turned and lifted myself out of bed. We would give a blow-by-blow, step-by-step description of absolutely everything. And not only do we not have the time for that, nobody cares. Nobody wants that amount of detail. So we naturally summarize things. When it comes to work topics, we fall back into a bad habit of giving too much information. And what we do is we believe that our audience needs to have lots of detail, lots of background to be able to understand our question or understand the point we're making. And that is wrong. We generally don't need that information. And if people do need it, they ask. So that's what we do. We give a lot of information. The problem is we don't have time for that. A lot of times our audience doesn't need or want it. So how do we solve that problem? The solution is summaries. And the GPS goal problem solution method is a great way to summarize anything. And here's what it is. You state what you're trying to achieve. That's the goal. So Pradeep, I want to talk to you about next month's client meeting. The goal is I want to make sure we've got our agenda planned. The problem is I'm not sure on the topics that you want to talk about. So as a solution, can I get half an hour with you tomorrow to run through the planning? I've just summarized what I want to achieve, the problem that's standing between me and achieving it, and the solution that I want. What I could have done is said, oh, we've got this client meeting next week or next month. And you know, the one with these people, and we've been talking about it for a while, and I've been working out what my plans are, and I've got these topics, and I know that you want to have something. I'm already boring myself. I'm pretty sure you're thinking, what is your point? Where are we going to with this? So by stating the goal as one line, the problem as another, that tells you what I'm trying to achieve and why I can't. And then the solution gets both of us to start talking about a forward-focused, solution-based conversation. So goal, problem, and solution can summarize anything, give the audience what they need, and move the conversation forwards.
I love that. And when I was reading about GPS, it also made me realize that, man, if you read a storytelling book, even storytelling books talk about this. I mean, in a slightly more elaborate sense, maybe, but they do talk about it from a goal, problem, solution perspective. Every movie is more or less within that.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is. Take a huge one. Harry Potter. Harry, his goal is just to get through the school year. The problem is crazy stuff keeps happening to him. The solution, magic and hiding under blankets and etc. etc. That's a very, very high level summary, but every story has somebody who's trying to achieve something. They have a bunch of problems that are stopping them from achieving it. And the story is the solution, how they go about doing it. And there's a lot of discussion currently in the communication skills field about the power of storytelling. And storytelling is fantastic in the right circumstances if you really understand it and you've got the time to create a very compelling narrative. If you don't have that time, and most of us don't, or we catch someone in the corridor and go, oh, I need to talk to you about something, we can still use the power of a story structure in goal, problem, solution to help the other person understand our point, understand our narrative, and take them on a journey, but without having to do all of the really detailed storytelling stuff that we could spend days talking about.
Definitely. To summarize it for the audience as well, there are 6 steps over here. First is framing, which has 3 things in it: context, intention, and key message. And then there's GPS to elaborate on whatever you're saying after you've framed the context, which is goal, problem, solution. Now, when it comes to applying this, how can someone who is not familiar with this, who's just hearing about this for the first time, start practicing and building their mindset towards concise communication like this itself? What are your thoughts there?
Yes, practicing is the hardest part. You already mentioned the method is simple. It's simple, it's logical, it is not rocket science. And my background is actually rocket science, so I can say that. It is not rocket science, it is just a simple framework. The challenge is remembering it and using it. So here are a few ways that people can apply to practice it. Start when you're writing your emails, or start when you're preparing for an important conversation. Take 30 to 60 seconds, less than a minute, to write down context equals, intent equals, key message equals, and then the same for the goal, the problem, and the solution. If you're preparing for an important conversation, write those things down. You can even take them with you. Nobody will mind if you have some notes. You can even say, I've just got a couple of notes to make sure I'm really clear on the point I'm making. Your audience will appreciate the effort, almost always appreciate the effort that you've gone to. So writing it down first helps. And the second tip, particularly for goal, problem, solution, let's say you are in a meeting and someone asks you a question that you weren't expecting. If your notepad in front of you or on your screen, you have G, P, and S written somewhere that you can see, it's a visual reminder to structure your answer using goal, problem, and solution. For example, Hrideep, you could say to me, Chris, what is the status of the report that I owe you for next week? So, well, my goal is to get it to you for Friday. I'm currently missing some data. That's the problem. What I'm doing is I'm talking to Sanjay to get the data on Wednesday so that I have it ready for you on Friday. That is a complete story. It's goal, problem, solution, and it's a very short summary. So the tip is write it down and have it in a place where you can see it, and then use it. Find ways to practice and apply it. And over time, you'll get more comfortable doing this naturally as you think and speak.
Are there any situations that you would recommend? And this is something even I'm curious to know because it's not in the book, where the framing or the GPS framework does not apply in the workplace. So I know it's not for relationships, but are there any situations I should take myself out?
Yes. If you're in the unfortunate position of delivering bad news, for example, somebody is being let go from their job, they're being fired, and so on, don't use framing. I would not start the conversation with, hi, Hrideep, what I want to do is talk to you about your job. I need to give you some bad news. You're about to be fired. Now let me tell you the rest of it. Not a good situation to do that. I wouldn't use GPS for that. Our goal is for the company to make a lot of money. The problem is you're very expensive. So our solution, we're going to let you go. Not good use of, not a good use of the two methods. So yes, there are absolutely situations where it's not relevant and not great. The guideline is if what you're about to say is very emotive, if it's going to create a big emotional reaction, you may want to take a different approach for setting up that difficult conversation. And there are other resources available for how to set up the delivery of bad news. So yeah, bad news, particularly being fired, don't frame it.
Fantastic. Amazing. Chris, thank you so much for having us here. It was a pleasure. And I hope you guys enjoyed. See you until next time.
Hey, I hope you found some value in this video. If you did, subscribe and like this video so it reaches more people. And if you want to learn more frameworks like the ones that Chris gave, you can check out this video where we've highlighted 5 different mental models that you can utilize to not blank out and speak effectively. You can check it out right here.